Hello everyone, welcome back to Book Club Preview. Today we're looking at The Hobbit chapter 3, and in this chapter we get some rest. Well, it starts off with not being very happy. You know, once they escape the trolls and they hide the treasure, they go off to try to find Gandalf's friends, the elves, and they're just kind of going through maybe a little bit more rain, some rocky terrain, some valleys, some gullies. They're not happy. There's no songs, there's no talking, no singing, and they just try to make their way to Rivendell, which you find out later. Eventually, they find this one hidden path, and they actually almost fall off a cliff down into a valley, where deep down in this valley is where the elves live. So they find this path and they go down this valley, and it's kind of going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until they get down to the bottom. The elves are singing songs while they're riding their horses and ponies along and making jokes, but finally they get to a place where they can eat, where they can sleep, and they stay there in Rivendell for about 14 days. Not a lot of stuff to talk about. The good stuff is easy to skip over, the author says, but the bad stuff you can give a lot of details in. So even though they're there for 14 days, not a lot to talk about. They're able to really rest and relax. And then they come to the last homely house, which is where Elrond, the leader of these elves, lives. And Elrond's a pretty cool guy. You can hear about him in other, like in Lord of the Rings he appears. And I think in the Silmarillion he's there too. But in this story, it says he doesn't have a lot in connection with this story particularly, except for this part. But he comes and appears in other stories. He's a very, very old elf, like one of the old elf lords from long, long ago, whatever that means. This guy's really wise, he's really nice, he's really smart. And he helps the dwarves prepare their way through the Misty Mountains. He also looks at Gandalf's sword. He looks at Thorin's sword. And he looks at Thorin's sword and he said, these are really old swords from back at the beginning of days when the elves were fighting the goblins. He said, this sword is called Orcust, or Orc Slayer, Goblin Slayer. And then he gives Gandalf back his and reads the runes, saying this is called Glamdring. And these are really old, special, wonderful swords. They're really excited, and they say, thank you, we'll keep these well. Then Elrond looks at the map, and in the map we see moon runes. There we go. Moon letters. So these are runes that the dwarves created that you can only see what is written. It's like secret ink. You can only see what's written in moonlight. But the really special ones you can only see in the moonlight at the right phase of the moon and at the right season of the moon. So this is like the only day you could look at these letters in the whole year, perhaps. So he got kind of lucky. He reads the letters. It kind of talks about a hidden door, listening to a raven or a thrush smack a rock for a while, and you'll have a hint. They have no idea what it means, but they learn what these moon letters, an extra hint on the map. The moon letters talk about Durin's Day. Durin's Day is like the first day of the year for the dwarves. It's like their New Year's. No one knows when it is anymore, though, except for the dwarves. So Thorin says, yeah, I know when that day is. But how to determine when that day should be, oh man, I don't know when that is. I know what the day is, but I don't know how to determine it. Gandalf has a little bit of he's like, okay, well, maybe we'll figure this out later. Maybe he knows more than he's letting on, but that's kind of where he stops. And then they leave and head off onto their journey. So a few vocabulary words. First one is forded. Forded means to cross or crossed, especially like a river You can't, if you have like a horse or ponies and things, you're not necessarily going to swim across it, but you're going to try to walk, swim kind of through the water to get to the other side. This is forded. The next word here is dwelling. Dwelling is a home. It's where you live, so it can be also used as like live. Where is your dwelling? Where do you live? This is my dwelling. This is my home. So it can kind of go back and forth like that. Next one is ravines, gullies and valleys. Those are all similar things. They can be very different. Ravines are probably steeper, more dangerous. Gullies are probably a little bit more easy and relaxed. And a valley is the low place between two mountains. So deep sides is pretty much how I think of it. You can search them, Google them, and the images will probably do better than a description. Reeking means smelling. Something is reeking. Maybe themselves. I can't remember exactly. Oh, I think it's the song. They're saying something is reeking. I want to put this word here because this word nowadays is kind of a bad word. So I don't even like to say this word. But in the old time, especially in this book, it has no bad meaning to it at all. But it's just in modern times that it has a bad word to it. So this word is faggot. Okay, and a faggot is a piece of wood that's really good to start a fire with. Okay, but nowadays, I guess a while ago, that word was used to talk about homosexual people, and they used to call them that word, meaning that they're kind of worthless. They're only good to start a fire with, something like that. So nowadays, we really don't like to say that word because it can really hurt people's feelings if they're homosexual or something. So that word has changed its meaning. But originally, it just meant a piece of wood to start a fire really easily. Let's see here. Is that the last word? Oh, a parapet. A parapet is a low wall. So if you cross a bridge, usually there's like a low wall, so you don't just fall right off the bridge. But in this elf area, they have to cross a gap or like a river or something, and there's no parapet. There's no wall on the side. It's just a wall-less bridge. That leaves us with our discussion question. And this might be a little bit simple, but I just kept thinking, if you were Bilbo, or maybe even the dwarves, I don't know, could you leave the elves? They're eating good food. If you like to hang out and party with people, there's always parties and things going on. If you like to just think and be alone, there's places where you can just think and be alone and connect with nature, whatever. Like anything you want, you can find here in Rivendell. And the dwarves and Bilbo, they have a great time. But then they have to leave and go into the darkness, into the madness, into the crazy misty mountains. Could you do it after having, it's almost like experiencing heaven on earth? Could you go into the darkness? Of course, please make your own discussion question. That is all the time that we have for today.